I'm sitting in your seat.
For a short meeting.
For a short
Hey,
meeting.
Karen,
It's only $1.50.
Dave Brown's on the finance committee, right?
Oh, it is. It is.
No,
I thought he was on it.
I don't think so. Oops.
Maybe I'm wrong on that.
No, he's not.
He's not. Thanks, Dale.
I have, I have 9 a.m. I'd like to call to order the Kane County Finance and Budget Committee meeting of Wednesday, February 24th. Do we have roll call for attendance, please?
Ford, Leonard,
Leonard here.
Martin,
Here.
Sanchez,
Here.
Surges,
Here.
Tepe,
Happy here.
Shepro, Prague, Berman.
Here.
Thank you.
I get my second COVID shot tomorrow, so maybe I'll be coming out of hibernation, hopefully. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from January 27th?
Leonard so moves.
Happy second.
Mr. Berman, that feedback is coming from your line, so I'm not sure if you have a second device on or your sound is too high.
Sounds like a heart monitor. So they have a heart first.
There you go. It was a second device.
Don't think so.
No, I think we're good. I think it was a different line.
All right, we have a motion and a second for approval of minutes. Roll call, please.
Ford, Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe.
Happy yes.
They're approved.
Any public comments? Moving on to the treasurer's report.
Good morning, Carolyn Brady from the Treasurer's Office. We have submitted the Treasurer's Report for your review. It's part of the package. In addition, we're continuing to make the CARES payments with conjunction with Favioli and Mr. Berger's office, and Finance, Auditor, and then the Treasurer's Office. We have great teamwork and great communication, so we continue to do that.
Any comments? Questions? Yeah, we'll approve these reports all together. The Finance Director, Joe?
Good morning. This is Joe Onsick, Director of Finance. Included in your agenda packet would be the budget performance reports through the month of January. Since it's early in the year, there's really not very much to comment on other than to provide some basic explanations for why you might be seeing some larger variances at the beginning of the year. And they all basically have to do with the timing of either large expenditures occurring at the beginning of the year, such as our insurance liability payments, or they may have to do with the purchase orders that are issued at the beginning of the year for the Division of Transportation. There may be transfers that occur at the beginning of the year that were approved by the board when the budget was approved. So those are the general explanations for those larger variances. Within the agenda packet, there's also an updated budget versus actual report for the month of November. It's still very preliminary. There are, a few significant adjustments that still need to be made as a result of our reconciliations and recording off-balance sheet bank account transactions. There are more reimbursements from the Coronavirus Relief Fund that need to be approved and posted. And there's also the interest earned and the change in investment market value that needs to be posted as of the end of the year. But we're very close to having all of these things done. I prepared an updated general fund revenue comparison between between last year's revenue versus this year's revenue, so that you could get a glimpse of how it changed, primarily due to COVID. And so if you look toward the bottom line, this is page 2 of my report, it's about $3.3 million below in total of revenue collected in 2020 than we had collected in 2019. So that would be the impact from the economic impact of the COVID pandemic. And it's significantly less than what we had anticipated. We were concerned that it may be as much as $6 million difference. So it is encouraging that it was only 3.3 million, even though that is a very large amount. Looking at the shared and direct state tax revenue that was collected, this would be through, I believe it's through the month of February. We're really doing pretty well in comparison to what we had budgeted and in comparison to what we had collected the same time last year. We're $221,000 ahead of where we were at last year in total for sales tax, local use tax, RTA sales tax, state income tax, and personal property replacement tax. And we're also $610,000 ahead of the budget. Where we're ahead most significantly is in state income tax collections there. I also included a chart on page 3 of my report that compares the sales tax revenue collection according to the month of actual sales that the sales tax were collected on. And as you can see, we've in this updated chart, we start to fall behind in our sales tax collection for sales that began in February, March, April, May. June, we started to recover. July, we're almost broke even. We started to take another dip in August. September and October, we were back up to where we had been the previous year. And then we see it start to drop off again in November. And that's as far as our current data goes. So it'll be interesting to see what December looks like when next month's report. If we look at the health insurance fund, we're pretty much have the final figures for the health insurance fund as we ended the year for 2020. We came out with $1.5 million roughly more in contributions from the county employees and retirees and COBRA participants than what we had expensed. This does include an additional, or this does include the refund from IPBC, which is almost $1 million. So about 2/3 of that increase had to do with the refund from IPBC. If we look at the cash balance as of February 19th, it's at almost $9 million, which had increased $1.3 million from the previous month. Although this is just about reaching our target of $9 million, this is the beginning of the year. And so typically at the beginning of the year, we do see a spike in cash. And that is because the expenses are usually lower when we start out the year. And this also has to do with the timing of when we collect contributions through the payroll system versus when we issue payments to Blue Cross Blue Shield. So we need to get a little bit further into the year to judge where we're really at. But at this point, we are nearly at our target of $9 million. The contingency balances for fiscal year 20 remain unchanged at roughly 419,000 for general use and 50,000 for adult prisoner room and board. And we have, for fiscal year 21, nearly the full amount of contingency available at $947,000. We're working very hard in the finance department and in cooperation with our elected official offices and departments in the county to close out the year 2020. There's a lot of activity going on, a lot of reconciliations, a lot of reviews. We also identified about $5.8 million more of non-payroll expenses that may be eligible for reimbursement for COVID that would apply to 2020. And there's also $6.5 million more of payroll-related expenses that are probably eligible for reimbursement as well. So those items, those reimbursements are not reflected in that report that was included in the packet, but so that's why I'm mentioning it here. Once these reimbursements are finalized, which we're very close to doing, we should have a nearly final figure of what our excess revenue over expenditures will be. And I can talk more about that when we review the resolutions that I sent out early this morning. Just a quick update on the external auditors. The final audit fieldwork will begin Monday, March 1st. And there is an amendment to the contract with Baker Tilly to include the Coronavirus Relief Fund in their audit procedures for a not to exceed amount of $15,000. And that amendment to the contract is included in the agenda packet as a resolution. Just to quickly mention that the county did submit its request to receive direct funding from the U.S. Department of Treasury for the Emergency Rental Assistance Grant. It was submitted by the deadline of January 12th, and then we received the allocation of $15,782,000 on January 21st. And the county Scott Berger and the Office of Community Reinvestment are working with the state's attorney's office to review a draft of an intergovernmental agreement with the Illinois Housing Development Authority to administer the program for us. I did include in my report some information regarding cannabis sales tax rates that might be helpful for you as you consider the resolutions that are included in the agenda packet. I did some research and provided for you what the current rates are, sales tax rates are for cannabis for each of the surrounding counties. So it shows what the sales tax rates are within their municipalities and within their unincorporated areas and how that compares to Kane County's proposed rate. I wanted to give you an update on IMRF. As you remember, back in December 2019, IMRF lowered its return on investment performance standard from 7.5% to 7.25%. It did result in a negative annual impact on our budget of roughly $1.6 million. But given the fact that the investment returns were 19% in 2019 and 11% in 2020, it does seem more and more that such a decrease in performance expectations was unnecessary. there were openings on the IMRF board and 3 new candidates ran for those open positions. And
Joe,
yes,
Flip Sturgis here. I'm sorry, did you say necessary or unnecessary?
unnecessary.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Okay, so and basically what I wanted to just say is that as a result of everyone's efforts, the elected officials, our former chairman, and all of those people who would have voted in the election for the IMRF trustees, 3 new candidates were put in place, and it has been reported that there was already an attempt made by IMRF to lower the standard even more at their last board meeting in December, but it was voted down, thanks in part to the new candidates that were placed on the board. So I think everyone who worked for that should feel gratified at that result. I do have a few things to share from the purchasing department. As you know, we have a new director of purchasing, John Bloomstrand, and he's been working very hard and has actually accomplished some pretty significant things. And I've included a paragraph in my report for each of the items. One is that we are implementing a new IT platform to allow vendors the ability to send all of their bids and RFP-related documents to us electronically. So this will be a huge step forward for us. It's something we've been wanting to do for a long time. It's a free platform, free to us, free to the vendors, but it would certainly improve the efficiency of processing those items. And then there's also the Amazon Business Services Master account was set up for Kane County, and this will allow all of those, John has been working with all the elected officials and department heads to set up access to that account so that we can make purchase, for those of us who do make purchases from Amazon, by doing it through this master account, we would save or benefit from even more savings. And there's also a rebate involved. So that would be another benefit as a result of his efforts. That concludes my report, and I'd be happy then to review the resolutions with you that I sent you last night when we get to those on the agenda.
Any questions of Mr. Honzik?
Mr. Chairman, this is John Martin. I have a question of Joe.
Yes, Mr. Martin.
Maybe this is just uninformed suspicion. But how does the IMRF get such high returns on the investment portfolio? It just smacks to me of somebody that might be involved in more risk than you think a pension plan might, or am I just totally off base?
Well, I'm really not qualified to speak to that. I'm not a financial advisor. I wished I could answer your question, but I don't think it would be appropriate for me.
Well, and I wasn't really qualified to ask the question, so.
Any other comments, questions? Moving on to Auditor Report. Wegman?
Hello, Penny Wegman with the Auditor's Report, and our report is on file. Do want to point out that for January of 2021, we did process the payable claims of 1,888 payments, and we did review 2,452 payroll records for the month of January.
Any questions of Ms. Wegman? All right, moving on into new business. Item A, a resolution authorizing the fiscal year 20 budget adjustment.
Leonard moves.
Ford seconds.
Discussion? We have roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Passes.
Item B, a resolution authorizing fiscal year 2020 year-end budget allocation and adjustments. And we received that in the, since the publication of our agenda.
Leonard moves to discuss.
Sanchez seconds.
We have motion and a second, discussion.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is Bill Leonard. I was wondering if Joe Onsick could go through the email explanation that he has for resolutions B, C, and D, just B right now. But then when we get to C and D, also explain what he emailed to us, which we've all received, but I just would like some clarification if we could.
Mr. Hanzek?
Yes, I'd be happy to. The first resolution that that's being discussed now is the 2020 year-end budget allocations and adjustment. And so the text of the resolution kind of outlines some of the rationale behind what these figures represent. And so I'll kind of quickly go through that. First of all, I wanted to just highlight that we have $20,105,400 of excess revenue over expenditures in the general fund. This was composed of the items that I have in that first whereas clause. First of all, it's important to note that we do show a shortfall of revenue of almost $3.4 million, and that's due to the impact of COVID-19. Then we do have payroll reimbursement that came in from the Coronavirus Relief Fund that we were allowed to be reimbursed for. So we are taking the $3.6 million, an equal amount of the revenue shortfall, to reserve that equal amount of the payroll reimbursement to cover that revenue shortfall. So we're leaving that much in the general fund. Then that leaves roughly $15 million more of the COVID payroll reimbursement in the general fund that is available to allocate. We also had about $230,000 of additional revenue over and above what we had budgeted that had nothing to do with COVID. And so that is added to the excess revenue over expenditures. And then if you look at our expenses in the general fund, we have almost $4.9 million of savings. So this would be in various departments, primarily in the sheriff's office, where there were significant savings in personnel, and theirs is the largest budget. He did offer early retirement incentives. There were savings in other departments such as judiciary and courts and court services that all added up to this amount. So the total excess revenue over expenditures is $20,105,400. Now, what we do each year, for those of you who are new, is we make a decision at this point in the year to allocate this excess. So we want to move it out of the general fund so it's not trapped in the general fund once we close the year. And we allocate it to the areas that the board determines to be appropriate. So what I've done for you then is laid out my recommendation based on various pieces of information that I have and requests that have come in. And you're certainly welcome to change any of this. This is just, at this point, it's a proposal, and we can change it as you see fit. So the first thing is that we had already planned on reserving $593,000 of the COVID payroll reimbursement to put in the public safety sales tax fund to fund the future payments of the body camera lease. So that $593,000 would cover all of the remaining payments of the body camera lease. So that is why I'm proposing that we do move that, as we had planned as part of the budget process, that we do move that into the public safety sales tax fund. There was $42,623 that the sheriff had budgeted for 2020 to purchase a vehicle with, but that vehicle was not delivered until fiscal year 2021. And so because of that delay, we were not able to charge the expense to fiscal year 2020. So the sheriff has asked that we roll over that $42,623 into fiscal year 21 in order to cover the expense that was incurred when the vehicle was delivered. Then we have an amount of $239,000 that represents the remaining early retirement incentive payout that the sheriff will be paying at the end of this year, fiscal year 2021. And so he has requested that $239,000 come out of some of the savings that he had achieved in 2020 and reserve that to pay the payout for that early retirement incentive. So that's what that $238,959 amount is. Then after that, there is still $585,926 of the sheriff's office operating savings still left to be allocated. And so I'm suggesting that we allocate that also to the Public Safety Sales Tax Fund to fund future purchases of the sheriff's office vehicles, because there is no other source of revenue for those vehicles. And so it would seem appropriate to use the savings that he achieved to set those aside for those purchases in the future. Also, then we have court services had requested that $125,000 of their savings, which was roughly $1 million, that be set aside to fund building improvements at the Juvenile Justice Center. And so I've honored that request in my proposal by including it in the proposal. There's also then remaining of the payroll reimbursement in the general fund is $14,409,466. And since this was COVID related, I'm suggesting that they be reserved also in the special reserve fund to cover future COVID related expenses, such as COVID related revenue shortfalls and any other expenses we may have in the future. So that's included in my proposal. Then we normally set aside amounts in the capital fund and the property tax relief fund. And so of what is left of our operating savings, so we had that $4.9 million of operating savings. I'm proposing that 1.5 million of it be reserved in the capital fund to pay for future capital projects. And that's the same amount we reserved last year. And then the remainder, which should be $2.6 million, I would suggest that we place into the Property Tax Freeze Protection Fund in order to help us balance future years' budgets in lieu of a property tax increase. Let's see. Okay, and then there's also a portion of payroll reimbursements from the COVID relief fund that were deposited into the IRMRF fund and the FICA fund for those expenses that were related to the reimbursable payroll expenses. So I'm proposing that we move those savings out of the IRMRF fund and the FICA fund and move those also into the special reserve to be reserved for future COVID-related expenses. And then there was also just a minor detail that I came across late last night that as part of the settlement that we had with Comcast, there's $50,000 a year that's being deducted from our Comcast cable franchise fees that are paid by Comcast to Kane County, but Comcast is keeping back $50,000 a year as payment of their settlement that was agreed upon. Since it is a settlement payment, it would be appropriate to charge that $50,000 to the insurance liability fund, which is why I've included that in this mix for year end. So then we get into the detail of the various account numbers that relate to what I've just described to you. So the first set of account numbers is transferring a total of $1,221,437 from the general fund to the public safety sales tax fund. And this is to cover the body camera lease payments. It's the $42,623,000 to roll over from fiscal year 20 to fiscal year 21 for the sheriff's office vehicle purchase. And then the remainder of the sheriff's office savings of $586,000 be placed in the public safety sales tax fund for future vehicle purchases. So it just shows those account numbers just illustrate how it would be transferred. Then we move into the special reserve fund itself, and this shows that a total of $14,773,425 be added to the special reserve fund from the general fund for COVID payroll reimbursements, the $125,000 of savings from court services for JJC building improvement, and then the $238,959 of sheriff's office savings to fund early retirement payments. Then we have the transfer of the $1.5 million from the general fund to the capital fund. And then we have the $2,610,000 from the general fund to the property tax freeze protection fund. Then we have those savings that I mentioned that are in the IMRF fund being transferred to the special reserve for future COVID-related expenses, and then the $1,125,929 of savings in the FICA fund to also be transferred to the special reserve fund. And then we have that $50,000 charge to the liability fund for the settlement expense for Comcast. So that covers everything here of what I'm proposing. And there's certainly time between now and executive committee and even the board meeting for you to recommend anything else you would like to do differently. And there's also then this where a final now therefore be it resolved clause that if there's any other changes that occur as a result of final reconciliations or audit adjustments, that I would have the authority then to make those adjustments to the allocation to the property tax freeze protection fund so that we can be sure to be within $5,000 of what we have available with the final figures at the end of the year. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Chairman, this is Leonard. I'd like to ask Mr. Onsick a question.
Yes, Mr. Hunt.
Or make a statement. First of all, Joe, thank you very much. This is very detailed, very easy to understand, and I do appreciate it. I did notice in the different listings of the different accounts that funds are being transferred to, in the very first group, it transferred $1,221,437. The very bottom line of that has an additional 2 in there that needs to be taken out.
Oh, thank you so much.
That's a new number. Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Any comments, discussion, more discussion?
Good job, Mr. Leonard. It's not all that easy though, so.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve. Do we have a roll call, please?
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes.
Carries.
And motion C, or resolution C, miscellaneous fiscal year 2020 budget adjustments, which we also received late.
Leonard moves.
Pepe second.
We have a motion and a second, discussion.
This is Joe Onzik. I'd be happy to review this for you.
I think it'd be good.
Okay. Basically, what we do at the end of the year also, just so that we're in compliance with state statute and our financial policies, the opinions on the state statute that regarding budget and elected officials would indicate that elected officials are required to stay within their budget in total for their personnel wages, personnel benefits, and contractual services. That group of expenditures needs to equal the total budgets for those expenditures. And then their total budget for commodities needs to be, I'm sorry, their total expenditures for commodities needs to be within the total commodity budget, and then total expenditures for capital within the total capital budget. So I went through and did an analysis just to make sure how that everything was in line, but I did identify some places where we need to just make some budget adjustments between accounts within the elected official's office, just to balance it out so that we're in the right categories. I did the same thing for department heads. They have a little bit different rule according to our financial policies, where for department heads, their total personnel expenses for wages and benefits need to be within the budget for wages and benefits. Their total expenses for contractual and commodity expenses need to be within the budget for contractual and commodity expenses, and their expenses for capital need to be within the budget for capital. And so by having done all that, I identified a few areas that need to be corrected. Building management was the largest area that needed to be corrected. And that's really because utilities were and janitorial services were much higher than what we had anticipated, but there were also savings on the salaries and wages and benefits side that we were able to take from and distribute over the utilities and janitorial services. So that first group of budget adjustments accomplishes that. And so if you were to add up all these figures, the total would be zero because there is no net change to their budget. The same thing in the treasurer's office. They needed a total of $790 to be moved out of what they had in terms of what I had done in my analysis. Judiciary and courts, they only needed $4,994 adjustment between books and subscriptions and contractual expenses. State's attorney, we moved our budget out of consulting services and legal process services in order to make up the difference in the budget for books and subscriptions. The sheriff, we just had to move between building savings from their salaries and wages to cover overages and their operating supplies and building improvements. Within court services, we had to make a few adjustments because they have several different sub-departments, but just rearranging budget by pulling some budget from juvenile board and care and spreading it out over some of the other areas so that their total budgets for services and their total budgets for commodities would be in line.
Hey, Mark, I'm on a Zoom call right now.
Similarly, we did the same thing with environmental management, where we moved budget from consulting services to cover some shortfall in the salaries and wages and healthcare contributions. And then lastly, within development, there was just a tiny difference of $52 that we took care of. So in every single case, the total budget for the department of the office is unchanged. It's just that the line items within were adjusted so that we can be in compliance with state statutes or financial policies.
Thank you, Joe. Any other discussion, questions of Mr. Onzik? We have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe.
Pepe, yes.
Thank you.
And item D, a resolution authorizing miscellaneous fiscal year 2021 budget adjustments, which we received.
Leonard moves.
Ford seconds.
Discussion.
I can review this one as well. This is just kind of related to the allocations that were proposed for fiscal year end 2020 and some of the things that we reserved for use in 2021. So first of all, we have within the public safety fund, we have the rollover of $42,623 from fiscal year 2020 that is going to be freed up to be used in 2021 to fund the purchase of the vehicle that was delivered in 2021. And then we have the additional amount that is reserved for the sheriff's office vehicles that is now being added to the budget for those vehicles. Then, let's see, within the special reserve, we have that $238,959 that was set aside to pay for the final payouts at the end of 2021 for the early retirement incentive in the sheriff's office. So you have that $239,000 being distributed to the sheriff's office to cover the wages and within the sheriff's deputies and the correctional departments. And then you also have it being a small portion being transferred to the FICA fund to pay the FICA that's related to those payments. So it's just basically to establish the budget of what had been set aside and allocated at the end of 2020.
Any other discussions? Thank you, Bill. Any other discussion? We have roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe.
Pepe, yes.
Passes.
Thank you very much. Item E. Authorization, contract amendment for the King County Coronavirus Relief Fund consultant.
Sanchez moves.
Ford seconds.
Discussion. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe.
Pepe, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item F, resolution authorizing additional funding from CARES Act to support COVID-19 contact tracing.
Sanchez moves.
Pepe, Ford second.
Discussion. Roll
Mr.
call,
Berman,
please.
Sanchez here?
Mr. Chairman, Sanchez.
Mr. Berman?
Yes.
Sanchez
Sorry.
here.
Yes, Mr. Sanchez.
For those who were at Public Health last week, we started the discussion on this item. We did not at that time have a resolution. But what this resolution does is ensures that we have enough staffing in our contact tracing program. We were actually having to let go of some staffing because the state has changed the amount that they were going to help us pay for that program through May of this year. So we're just making this adjustment to keep our contact tracing staff, add a little bit more, and also to increase our staff in the call center for COVID to improve our wait times, and also to add a little bit of temp help in our office so that we can also have more people answering the calls at the health department and assisting staff with the things that are adding to their workload unnecessarily. So if there are any questions Uche Onwuta is on the line with us, and I have some, I sent out some documents already to Finance Committee members. So if you guys would have any questions, want to go over that, just let us know. Otherwise, this is the proposal. And actually, we had to give back over $1 million. The Public Health Department had to give back over $1 million from the CARES Act fund. So we're more or less just asking for some of that money back. It's only about $864,000.
Any,
Sturgis here, question.
yes, sir.
Hey, Jay, how long, and this is not a jab, it's just informational. Will the contact tracing program run beyond the point in time where everybody's vaccinated?
My understanding is as long as there is an emergency declared, a pandemic emergency declared, we will be conducting contact tracing. Uche, if you have anything else to add to that or correct in what I said.
Thank you, Mr. Surges. Contact tracing is an integral part of the communicable disease program. And even though it's called contact tracing, it includes the case investigation. So essentially what we do in communicable disease for any disease at all is to investigate the disease, find out who is affected, and mitigate further spread of the disease. And that's the bedrock of communicable disease. So that contact tracing includes case investigation, includes resource coordination. For instance, those who are under isolation and quarantine might need their medications to be picked up. All of these are under the contact tracing program because we have to coordinate to make sure that the services they need, they require that they get. So contact tracing is not just for COVID. We do that every day with every disease that we investigate.
Perfect. You know what? That's the best answer I've heard on this yet. So I thank you so very much for the education.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Can we have roll call, please?
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Pepe.
Pepe, yes.
Thank you.
Item G, a resolution accepting the 2021 Compeer Financial Grant and approving fiscal year 21 budget adjustment for growing for King program activity.
Leonard moves.
Sanchez seconds.
Discussion?
Mr. Chairman, this is Leonard. I'd just like to thank this financial group for adding additional monies to the grant. This is money that is helping our farmers and pollinators with expenses that they have incurred or revenues they have lost. It's been very successful. We've gone through 2 rounds now, and the chairman of the Agricultural Committee is here, Mr. Kenyon, in case he has anything he would like to add, but I very much support this and I thank them for the grant.
I thank you. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Pepe.
Pepe, yes.
Thank you.
And item H, a resolution authorizing fiscal year 20 adult drug court discretionary grant program and match funds budget adjustment. We have a motion,
Leonard moves.
Sanchez seconds.
a motion and second, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Just confirming, Mr. Leonard moves and Tepe seconds.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Tepe.
Pepe, yes.
Thank you.
And item I, a resolution authorizing acceptance of fiscal year 2021 Illinois Department of Public Health COVID-19 mass vaccination grant agreement.
Sanchez moves.
Martin
Ford
seconds.
seconds.
We have a motion to second. Any discussion?
Sanchez here.
Yes, sir.
This is, it's kind of self-explanatory, but it is a $1.29 million grant that we are receiving from the state. It's a non-competitive grant, so every county that applies gets it. And it's going to help us with all of our mass vaccination clinics and really push us a little closer to that big number we're all looking for of herd immunity. There is a draft of the grant that I received, so we can send that out ahead of next week's executive if anyone would like it. But otherwise, 1.29 million.
Any other discussion? Thank you.
Yes, I have a question. It's Pirog, if I may.
Yes, please.
You just mentioned, just to clarify, is it 1.25 or 1.29?
0.25.
Because it says here 1.25.
Oh, I'm sorry, 1.25.
Oh, thank you. $4 million. extra.
Not a numbers guy.
Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Pepe.
Pepe, yes.
Thank you.
We're going to skip item J, going back to committee. Item K, a resolution authorizing a contract for landscape maintenance service for the Mill Creek SSA.
Ford passes.
Discussion.
Moves.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe.
Pepe, yes.
Thank you.
And item L, a resolution authorizing contract for drug testing. Do you have a motion?
Sanchez moves.
Pepe, second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Pepe.
Pepe, yes.
Thank you.
And item M, a resolution authorizing 2021, 2022 contract extension for household hazardous waste home collection services.
Pepe moves. Ford seconds.
Discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Tepe.
Pepe, yes.
And item N, a resolution authorizing renewal of contract for financial advisor.
Sanchez moves.
Ford seconds.
Discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Tepe.
Pepe, yes.
Thank you.
Item O, a resolution authorizing the external auditor contract amendment to include the CARES Act program in fiscal year 2020 audit.
Sanchez moves.
Pepe, second.
Have a motion, a second, discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Tepe.
Pepe, yes.
Thank you.
And item P, Resolution approving the second round of COVID-19 relief mini grants to 12 Keene County food growers.
Leonard moves.
Sanchez seconds.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford. Leonard.
Leonard, yes.
Martin.
Martin, yes.
Sanchez.
Yes.
Surges.
Sturgis, yes.
Pepe.
Pepe, yes.
Thank you.
Item Q, a resolution authorizing 2021 intergovernmental agreement between Plato Township and the County of Kane for household hazardous waste collection and recycling services.
Sanchez moves.
Pepe, second.
Have a motion and a second, a discussion. Roll call, please.
Leonard.
Leonard, yes.
Martin.
Martin, yes.
Sanchez.
Yes.
Surges.
Sturgis, yes.
Tepe.
Pepe, yes.
Ford. Thank you.
Item R, resolution authorizing health department purchase of mosquito larvicide.
Sanchez moves.
Pepe, second.
Motion and second, discussion. Roll call, please.
Leonard.
Leonard, yes.
Martin.
Martin, yes.
Sanchez.
Yes.
Surges.
Sturgis, yes.
And Tepe.
Pepe, yes.
Thank you.
S, resolution authorizing the issuance of an RFP for cost of service study.
Leonard moves.
Martin, seconds.
Any discussion?
This is Director Onzik. I could offer a word of explanation for this.
Very good.
I think in 2014 was the last time that the county conducted a cost of service study, on which then some fee increases were recommended in order to recover the cost of those services. And this would involve the sheriff's office, the recorder's office, the county clerk's office, and I believe animal control. Those were the same areas that we studied the last time around. And so given that we are facing some challenges regarding how we're going to balance next year's budget, and given our limited revenue sources, it seems that this might be a good time to do another study like that and see what might be recommended from the consultants as to whether we should be increasing fees or by how much. And then the board would have an opportunity to decide based on that information on whether to do so. And then we would have that information available to incorporate into next year's budget. So this is just authorizing the issuance of the RFP. So once it's approved, if that's your desire to do that, then we will go ahead and do that and bring back the results of that RFP to you and then begin the study.
Discussion?
Sturgis here.
Sturgis?
Hey, Joe, I had a constituent reach out to me asking me about an RFQ 42-020. That has nothing to do with this, correct?
I don't think so, because this has
One
not
was
been
buildings and this is services, is that correct?
I think we may be talking about two different things. This is the cost of service study. So for example.
Perfect. No, stop. Good.
Okay.
The other one was buildings. This is services that, now I get it.
Okay.
Sorry, thank you. Sorry. Thanks for being there.
I think 7 years since the last review was probably a time to do it. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Leonard.
Leonard, yes.
Martin.
Martin, yes.
Sanchez.
Yes.
Surges.
Sturgis, yes.
Tepe.
Pepe, yes.
Ford.
Yes.
Thank you.
And item T, an ordinance amending the county cannabis retailer's occupational tax in the incorporated area of Kane County. Let's receive that this morning.
Sanchez moves.
Ford seconds.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second discussion.
Sanchez here.
Yes, Mr. Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm in favor of cannabis businesses in the county in general. I know a lot of people look at it as a big moneymaker for corporate entities such as ourselves. I've looked at it as a big moneymaker for corporate entities such as ourselves in the long term, not in the short term. And if I had my way, I would set the tax rate for all cannabis sales at 1% to help the new industry really establish itself and, you know, move the tax rate up over time. I think it's more popular with people to want to get the full amount of tax from all cannabis sales. So I understand that. I just wanted to voice my opinion on the matter. It's a new industry, and the more we can help it thrive by keeping the taxes a little lower, because if you look at the state, there's a lot that they put on there. I think the better. So that's my only comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. Any other discussion? We have a roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
No.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Tepe.
Pepe, yes.
Thank you.
Item U, an ordinance amending the county cannabis retailer's occupational tax in the unincorporated areas of Kane County.
Sanchez moves.
Ford seconds.
Discussion.
Mr. Chairman, this is Leonard. Just have one question on that. For the unincorporated areas of Kane County, it looks like we're looking at charging a 3.75% tax for any sales in the unincorporated areas. If in fact that old amendment is, if that old resolution is amended or replaced by a new one, 3.75, I believe, is the highest amount we can charge, but I also believe it's in line with what the other surrounding counties are charging. I just wanted to get some verification on that.
This is Director
Well,
Onzik.
Yes,
I did include within my finance report,
Yeah.
I can't, I'll have to find the page, but I did do a study. I went to the Illinois Department of Revenue website and I looked up each of the counties' cannabis sales tax rates. And I did confirm, based on what I put in the chart, that all of the surrounding counties, I think with one or two exceptions, are already charging 3.75%.
I think it was Cook is at 2.
Thank
if I
you.
remember correctly.
And this is Pirog. DuPage does not charge tax because they don't have any cannabis businesses in unincorporated DuPage.
Sturgis here.
yes.
Do we equally not, do we equally prohibit cannabis in unincorporated at this minute, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So we're voting on this one in front. Do we have the cart before the horse on this?
Well, it's an anticipation of the other. Not,
Mr. Chairman, Sanchez here.
yes,
We had established a lower rate last year, even though we didn't end up approving businesses in unincorporated. But as the prospect of approving businesses in unincorporated becomes more possible, I think it's helpful for businesses to know where our tax rate is when they're looking to move facilities somewhere.
And this is Pirog. Mr. Surgis, I'd like to comment on some very wise words that you said at a previous meeting when this was first discussed last year.
I'm anticipating this, yes.
Is this on? Oh, hold on a second.
I can't hear it.
Fixing my mic. There we go. Thank you. You said that businesses like stability, and I concur with that.
And
And
predictability. Yes.
predictability. So instead of gradually increasing this, we'll set the fee and then it'll be established so that businesses know exactly what the tax rate is. It is the maximum amount by Illinois state law. So it'll be stable, and then businesses can be secured knowing that there won't be incremental raises going forward if this board so chooses. So it's an established fee. And I think that's very important for businesses to know what their costs are going to be.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
No.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes.
Thank you.
Moving on to item V, a resolution, approval to hire replacement for executive director of the building management. Which we received the material yesterday.
Ford moves.
Martin seconds.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes.
Thank you.
And W, resolution authorizing approval of personnel hiring for information technology department.
Ford moves.
Sanchez seconds.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes.
Thank you.
And item X, a resolution approving personnel replacement hiring for King County Division of Transportation for an accountant 1/2.
Ford moves.
Leonard, seconds.
Discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes.
Thank you.
And item Y, a resolution approving our January 2021 claims paid.
Leonard moves.
Ford seconds.
Discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes.
Thank you.
We don't have any other new business.
Mr. Berman,
Yes.
I have a question for Mr. Onset. Is he still there?
Yes.
Okay. In the public service meeting, there was a resolution presented by the clerk's office, moving some budgeted numbers around. I don't recall seeing that in today's meeting. If you'll recall, I asked you for some specific information related to that. Is that resolution included today?
Yes, it is. It may have been hard to find it because the title isn't very descriptive. It's item A, authorizing fiscal year 20 budget adjustment. That is the one that I believe was submitted to public service.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
All right, old business? I have nothing. Motion to replace reports on file.
No moved. Tepe.
Second,
Sanchez
Ford.
seconds. Ford can have it.
Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Burgess, yes.
Tepe.
Yes.
That passes, executive session. I'm not aware of a. Entertain a motion for adjournment.
Sanchez
Ford moves.
Give it to Ford again. I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carried.